والتابعين أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, it's always a pleasure to be here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the reciter that recited the Surah Al-Ghashiyah and his family and me. So today, inshallah, I was trying to figure out what we should talk about. And one of the things that comes off, I thought comes to my mind is some of the struggles that we face as we go on through this life until we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's quite obviously the tribulations and the tests that we face. And one of the largest tests that we face, or that we encounter on our way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has to do with the ability or resisting temptation. And when we think of temptation, what do we think about? Well, how do you define temptation?
The option to do anything or not.
The option to do anything you want?
To do anything or not.
To do anything or not. That's the definition of choice, I think. Attraction. To
fulfill your desire.
Okay, fulfill desire. Anything else? Say what?
Attached to dunya.
Oh, attached to dunya. I heard catastrophe, but no, attached to dunya. Alright. So attachment to dunya. Anything else? No? Alright, so if you ever look in a dictionary, so when we talk about temptation, it usually has to do, when they say falling into temptation, usually has to do something that is a bit more negative, right? And it has to do usually with indulging something that is not allowed most of the time. So the definition is the desire to do something, so desire is involved in there, the aspect of desire. And once again, we're talking about negative desire, not the positive desire. So when somebody says, well, I desire to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking more of the negative aspect of desire. So it's the desire to do something, especially something that is wrong. However, it really also has to do with committing it without proper thought or foresight of consequences. Okay? Without proper thought or foresight of consequences. Irrelevant of that, they don't think about it. Because quite often when people think of consequences in the end, they would not commit their desires, most of the time. Especially if they're negative consequences. We agree? Yes? Alright, so this is what we're talking about in terms of falling into desire. So the biggest question, I guess, I want to touch on 3 points, is why is it that in the first place that we sometimes fall into our desires? And then second, how can we resist them? And the third, obviously, if we fall into them, what we can do. Now, most of us can answer the last one. Is that right? What do we do when we fall into desire? Nothing, right? Come on, no, come on. I've given to your talks before. I can't talk for too long without asking questions. And I do expect your participation, because otherwise, meaning you're asleep, and it's not fair for me to be awake and you're asleep. I'll just join you. Okay?
Sleep or thinking about...
To me, it's more of a sleep issue, because people usually respond very quickly.
You could think about...
Without thinking, yeah. That's falling into their desires too, but that's okay. No.
Maybe people can come up.
Well, I think if they're asleep, they're not going to move up. Especially people at the back, and the 2 young ones at the back of that looks comfortable over there. There's 3 of them. One thinks they don't see them. They're sitting this way, right?
And
2 in front of me.
Friend Dr. Khalid is always at the back.
Khan is always at the back.
Tell him to come.
No, I'm not going to tell him to come, because then he'll yell at me. I'm not going to tell anybody to get off the wall anyway. But seriously, what do we do when we fall into our desires?
Right.
I'll tell you, it's as simple as that, right? Is it simple though? We'll talk about it towards the end, inshallah. But what are the reasons that we fall into desire? Okay, so that's the first thing I want to address. Now, if for us to really have a bit of some understanding, is maybe perhaps of why we fall into desire. Maybe perhaps the best thing to do is to look at the first individual that ever fell into desire, okay? Or the first individuals, I should say, okay? And kind of understand what made them fall into that. And then maybe perhaps we can figure our way out from there, because there are multiple reasons, but at least we should try to grasp a little bit here and there. And so the first individuals that fell into desire are who?
Adam,
Adam and
Hawa,
Hawa. Okay. And so what was the desire they fell into?
wanted to eat an apple from the tree.
Was that really their desire?
No, they wanted to
Oh, wait, hold on a second. You said eat what?
Eat the apple from the
The
fruit,
apple.
the fruit from the tree.
Okay, fruit, that's better. Because we don't know if it's an apple, right?
Desire to stay in Jannah forever.
Okay, that's another desire. Well, not necessarily stay in Jannah forever, but
Desire not to die.
excellent. Well, that's one of them. Okay? Another one?
I didn't hear what he said. What did he say?
He said to live forever.
Oh.
Another one. Let's straight from the Quran. Okay, so this is what the shaitan did. Okay?
Created fear.
Sorry?
Created fear.
Not fear. So the shaitan, so this is what he did. And this is an interesting dialogue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed to us in the Quran that happened between the shaitan and Adam alayhi salam, right? Not just Adam, but Adam and Hawa. So one verse in the Quran is وَمَا نَهَاكُمَا رَبُّكُمَا عَنْ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَا مَلَكَيْنِ أَوْ تَكُونَا مِنَ الْخَالِدِينَ. Right? So the first one is Allah. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not prohibit you to eat from that tree except that you would be angels or living for ever. So did Adam and Hawa know what angels were? Did they know what angels were? Yes, they did know what angels were. Right? And so they understood the ability of angels. Now, if somebody gave you, the choice to become an angel, would you pick that choice?
Yeah.
Think about it, right? Abilities, beauty, obedience, powers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon you. This is something that is desirable, right? Is that right? أو تكونا خالدين, or that you would live forever. Now Adam knew that he would not be living forever. Now this is a desire, subhanAllah, that is created in us. Right? Even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the disbelievers, the people of the book, He said in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَيَوَدُّ أَحَدُهُمْ أَن يُعَمَّرَ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ وَمَا هُوَ بِمُزَحْزِحِهِ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ أَن يُعَمَّرَ. Each one of you would love to live 1,000 years. Right? Even sometimes they would want to live more. It's in our nature to want to live, even forever. This is why everybody's always seeking the fountain of youth. Right? However, that doesn't exist. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed to us through the Prophet. He said, to the Prophet, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَمَيِّتُونَ. Verily you will die. The Prophet ﷺ even had mentioned, he said, for every disease there's a cure except one disease. What is it? Death. That's it. It's going to happen. So Adam alayhi salam, he knew this aspect. It's not that he did not. Allah A'lam. And so this is something they would desire, to live for ever. And yes, maybe they'll be living obviously in Jannah, so you don't want to live in Jannah for ever. And so that is a desire. Now there's another desire. هل أدلكم على شجرة الخلد وملك لا يبلى. Okay, so this is other conversation that the shaitan had with Adam alayhi salam, and he told him, he said, should I not point you to the tree of eternity, and وملك لا يبلى, and mulk, which means what?
Kingdom.
Kingdom that does not deplete. Right? Does not, where, mulk لا يبلى, does not deplete. Now, how many of us would wish something like that? Well, let's not be too humble, come on. Raise your hand. I would want one, come on. Spend it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, build masajids, all these things. But who would not really desire a kingdom does not, or wealth that does not deplete. It's within our desires. We're not angels. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala built these desires in us. It's not that He did not. There are certain desires that are built in us. Once again, there are desires that are built in us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned Surah Al-Imran, right? زُيَّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة والذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث ذلك متاع الحياة الدنيا. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create these desires in us? Okay, fair enough. Can you imagine if you did not have a desire for an inclination to the opposite gender? What would happen?
no more, the world will stop.
It's math, it's basic math. What would happen if you had no inclination to the opposite gender?
No more kids, no more.
No more offsprings, no more humanity. Okay? So it's a necessity. What would happen if you had no inclination of desiring life? Would you care to live on or cure yourself? No, what would happen to humanity? Ya ikhwa, please wake up with me. They would perish, is that right? No. What would happen if you have no inclination to wealth? No sustenance, no provisions. Is that right? It is simple, it's understandable. This is a necessity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created in us. However, when He created that necessity in us, He did not leave it unchecked or unbound. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed us to attain those desires in the proper means and regulations. Is that right? Alright, now back to what we were talking about. We're talking about following this. So, the shaitan, when he was talking to Adam, he was enticing him. Right? He was enticing him with all these things that were considered desires, something that a lot of us would desire. Now, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warn him about the shaitan or not? He did. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, similar to when He placed desires in us, or He placed certain things, He also warned us of the consequences or showed us the way. إِنَّ هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا إِنَّ هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ, which means we had shown him the path. And in another verse, إِنَّ هَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ, we showed him both paths. So both paths are clear. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did warn Adam alayhi salam prior to about that to the shaitan. Because the shaitan had already declared animosity towards Adam. You guys agree?
Yes.
Because he claimed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala led him astray. Right? And so he said, لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. And then another verse, لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Now this is very important. لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. I will beautify or decorate for them or make evil look good for them. Right? لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Like لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ, which means I will decorate for them committing sin on this earth. So the shaitan had declared that animosity, but also he told us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us what He said He will do to entice us to fall into our desires. So how is it? What would He do? That's the key word. Decorate. Right? Beautify for them falling into sins. So this is how He does it. So when He talked to Adam, spoke to Adam, so He wanted them to eat from that tree. That is a sin. And He enticed them with that desire, and He beautified it for them. Now, was that enough for Adam to eat from the tree? No, it wasn't. He actually had to do something else. وَقَاسَمَهُمَا إِنِّي لَكُمْ لَمِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. Right? And He swore to them that I am to you a sincere advisor. Now, Adam alayhi salam never thought that a person would ever swear by the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and lie. This is something that was unfathomable. He never thought about that. So he thought, okay, maybe this was true. So this was last, essentially, push, right? That Adam alayhi salam thought that all this was true. So this is the decoration aspect of things. Like here, you want to live forever, a kingdom, eat from the tree, disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what you want, you want to live forever. You want to have a kingdom that does not deplete. You want to be angels, right? And I'm telling you the truth. I'm not lying to you. And so He is enticing them, right? Encouraging them, beautifying that sin until they fall into it. And so I want you to think about every sin that we fall into, right? Any time that we fall into our temptation, right? I guarantee you, has been beautified to us one way or another. Guaranteed. Think about it. Right? Anytime we indulge into some sort of a desire, it has been beautified for us, either in the short term or long term.
Here are some results from the web.
Guaranteed. So, for example, let's grab it one by one. Okay, taking money that doesn't belong to us, or it's doing something, or taking a property that doesn't belong to us. We will try to justify it. Obviously, gaining wealth is beautified, but it has been decorated one way or another for us to take it. We always find that excuse, whether everybody's doing it, or whether it is this person is a non-Muslim, or whatever the case is. Okay? And it's a lot of times usually it's some sort of short-term desire, or at least the common excuse, we live once, I'll ask for repentance later on, I'll do Hajj when I get older, whatever you think about it, it has been decorated for us one way or another. And this is the way that the shaitan does these things. And this is basically trying to get at the mechanisms or the things that make us fall into sin. Okay, so this is the basic aspect of it, of how Adam alayhi salam was encouraged to fall into temptation. Now what are some of the things that we can do so that would kind of inshallah help us not fall into temptation? So that is the next aspect. Now one thing I have to mention is when we talk about the shaitan playing on our desires, it's important to understand that the shaitan doesn't sleep, right? There's no moment of resting. Okay? But also the shaitan doesn't come at you with the worst of things to